Hi, folks. Dr. Spears here, and shocking news or announcement I have to tell you guys. It's about myself. It's about myself on this journey in medicine. And it's very simple. I have never been the smartest guy when it comes to medicine and the sciences. It is something that I have to work extremely, extremely hard at, put in a lot of time and effort. And more often than not, I think, okay, why did I study so much? Did I put in all this effort and not get the result that I wanted to get? Not that I'm just high demanding, put a lot of pressure on myself, but the science and this medicine stuff, it's always been an uphill battle, but it's something I've always wanted. And so I just kept pushing through and just making things happen no matter what to get where I want to be. And it's just been a process and a journey. I know for a lot of you guys, you want to be in medicine, you want to be physicians and all of that stuff. And you have these exams, you have the classroom exams, you have your MCAT, maybe you have your USMLE step one, step two, or your osteopathic student, your complex exams, and all of that. It's just no matter what you do, like there's always gonna be another test, there's always gonna be another exam. And so you need to figure out a way. How do you study? How do you excel? And how do you get to the next level? And so I've done basically every single thing under the sun that you can imagine to get me to where I am. I've paid, oh my goodness, how much was that? I think $7,000 for a course to get ready for my boards. And that was in person for about maybe 4 or 6 weeks or something like that. So that's a lot of money there. In grad school, I went to a learning specialist, flew halfway across the country for that for a week or so to learn how to do things. And then even I met with somebody, paid a couple $1,000 to learn how to take standardized multiple choice exams. And so you see, that's a lot of money already in there. I easily spent, I would say, 25, $30,000 outside of the regular grad school and medical school curriculum on things just to enhance my academics or preparation for the sciences and for these medical licensing exams that you need to do if you want to be a licensed physician to practice in the United States. And so I just see a lot of stuff that's happening with that. I know you guys want to be there. I want to kind of just share some things that I've learned along the way in this process. And here's the thing, everybody is going to have some type of course, some type of program, some type of method that they're going to say, if you follow this 100%, you do what I'm telling you to do, trust this process, you're going to get where you need to be. Yeah, there's a lot of truth in that, but ultimately at the end of the day, you have to do what works for you because that's what matters. And so I've had these programs, some of them like I definitely tried. And I'm like, okay, this is absolutely not working for me. In particular, I did this one program on how to do your boards or multiple choice exams, and they said you need to follow our process for answering questions. And before I met with this person, I could finish my questions and have about 10 to 15 minutes left over. Obviously, I wasn't getting the scores I wanted, but I had 10 or 15 minutes left over where I could go back, review things, and all of that. And then I started using this new process, and I was barely finishing, maybe not finishing all the questions, trying to do this process because I had to look at every single answer choice individually and give it like a score on what I thought it was, and then obviously use the higher score and go with that answer choice. But if you're doing a question and you have options A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and you have to go through all of them, that's going to chew up a lot of time and it can actually hurt your chances of even finishing the exam. And then they also have this process where you weren't supposed to skip around on the test. So you're following our process. So it doesn't matter how difficult the question is. You just go through our process and you're going to do that and you should do well on it. And I did that. How long did I do that for? I think I did that for probably about 3 months and realized, no, this isn't working. I gave it what they said to do, and it wasn't getting me the results that I wanted. And so, you know what? I dropped the process of doing that. And you know what was really disappointing in this process of doing that? I paid all this money for this course or program in how to answer these questions for these board medical licensing exams. And so I met with the proctor tutor person, I think maybe no more than 5 times. So we had 5 sessions to go over this. However, at the end, I'm like, okay, I'm still not making progress. I'm not where I need to be. And basically, they were like, well, good luck. You use the time that we have in the program. Now you kind of just need to figure it out on your own. Just trust what we taught you and just continue to do more and more of that. And hopefully good things happen from you. And that's kind of ridiculous. I know as a student or anybody in that situation, you want help, you need to get to the next level where you need to be, and then to pay all this money to someone, go through their program or their process, and then not get the results you want. And they're just like, well, just continue doing what we told you to do, and it should work out for you. As a student, you're gonna be very upset. And I know why a lot of people are very leery or have doubts about working with people online because you don't want to be in that type of situation where you have so much riding on an exam, a class, whatever that you need to pass, and then you think you're getting this help, and then they say, well, we already built in how much time we're going to help you with, and regardless of where you're at, the clock expired, so you need to figure it out on your own. That's not good. You don't want to be in that situation, and you don't want to just jumping around back and forth, but you know you need to do something. And so I've been in your shoes. I know all about that. I've been there, and it's just not a good place to be. And you kind of feel like you're just left on your own to your own devices, and you need to figure it out. And it's like these people are just in it for the money grab. They know, okay, there's students, there's physicians need to pass their boards or whatever, and it's a very high tense environment where there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot riding on your performance, and you need to do something. And so obviously that didn't work. And so I'm like, okay, we got to do something different. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do what I normally do. I'm gonna just do things differently. I'm going to zoom through these questions, get the points that I can get where I know I can get. And if something's difficult or hard, I'm going to just skip it and come back to it later. I think that's something that a lot of students should do because here's what you do. When you go through like a question block or whatever, and you go through all the questions and then you skip the ones that you don't know, one thing that immediately happens is you become a little bit calmer in the process. You know why? Because you've seen all the questions in that block. Whereas if you're doing it one by one, following that process where, oh, no, you don't skip questions, you don't skip ahead, and you just do this rigid format, you have no clue what's coming down the pipeline. And that's an- anxiety invoking when you have that happening. But if you go ahead and you just get all the points you can get on the first run, you see what other type of questions there are, and then kind of working in your background of your head, you're kind of thinking about it. So when you come back around to it, you can solve it. And when there's questions, particularly when there's like biostats or something where you have to compute some things, that could take some time. Sometimes I'm like, I'm pretty solid in math or whatever. And so for that, I'm like, okay, I can get this answer correct. Here's the thing. I know it's going to take a little bit of time, but I can get this answer correct. And so you know what I would do? For some of those, I would skip those because I'm like, this is going to chew up a large chunk of time for me to get the correct answer. So I want to make sure that I'm getting all the other questions, and I'll save this for last because it's going to take me more than the time allotted for the other questions. But if you're thinking about it, if you're going rigidly and you're not going to come back and you do that approach, you're going to spend what 2 or 3 minutes on one question, and then there's going to be easier questions down the road that you're not going to get to, or you're going to be rushing and you're going to make simple mistakes that are going to cost you points on the test because of that process that you took. So I think what students should do when you're struggling and you're going through your exam is do a first run, get all the points that you can get, and then come back in the second run and start cleaning up the test, things that you had questions about, things that maybe you left blank even. Go ahead and start getting points out of that to really improve your ability to do well in the courses that you're doing or the tasks that you're taking so that you can excel. And then, so you do that. That's going to help you out. So, and again, what I want to say is, guys, you got to just find what works for you. Sometimes you might be able to hit a home run and find somebody who's willing to work with you. And that's actually happened with me, where when I was in med school, I just had a lot going on, a lot of stuff and everything like that. I would just leave it at that, and it was difficult. And one of the things that was interesting, I was speaking to learning specialist or academic advisor, and he was like, Jason, you know what the issue is? He goes, you know this material. You just have a little bit of testing anxiety and you don't believe in yourself. And so he's like, I'll work with you on things and I guarantee you're gonna see some huge strides and improvement in what you're doing and everything like that. And I kind of didn't believe like, no, I had to work so hard to get here. That's just not possible. Everybody wants to say, oh, they'll help you get to the next level and all of that. And more often than not, they don't. But I trusted this guy, and it would be so interesting. We would have our weekly sessions together, meet with him, and at the end he's like, Jason, you know what? Did you pick up on something? When we work together, I don't really tell you too much about academics, test taking strategies, study strategies. Maybe we did that at the beginning just to give you foundation what you should and shouldn't be doing. But beyond that, no, it's really he's like, I'm more like your coach or hype man or whatever, getting you confident in your abilities. Because I already know you can do this. You just been beat down a little bit on this journey in medicine and all of that. And so you just don't believe in yourself and that you have the knowledge that you have to be a proficient physician and all of that. And so I'm like, okay, yeah, that's good to hear, but it's been a struggle. So I'm not sure if I believe that 100% or whatever. But I'm like, I have nothing to lose at this point. I'm going to trust this guy and his process because it actually makes a lot of sense. Although there were some aspects I'm like, you know what? I'm very uncomfortable doing that because I'm one person like, oh, I like this resource for this, and then I'll use this resource for that. And then this is really good in this area of medicine. So I want to use all these different resources knowing that you shouldn't. He's like, nope, we're not going to do that. You are going to just stick to these 2 to 3 resources and that's it, nothing else. You don't want to burden yourself with all this other stuff, and that's really the case. I've done so much research on this process of like learning and like studying all of that, and I know that the less resources you use, the better you're going to do because you want to master something completely than just have superficial knowledge across like 4 or 5 different textbooks, online modules, or anything like that, or online like resources. You don't want to do that. It's better to just be narrowly focused and know that material 100% than to be at like 30 to 40% across the board on different materials. So that's one thing. And then also like, okay, you're like, okay, I need to be a doctor. I'm already in this process. There's so much that I put into this. I got to see this through to the end. And you're always thinking, okay, maybe there's a tip out there. Maybe there's something I'm missing. So let me go online and see what I can find out there, what other people are doing, what other high scores are doing. And so you come across stuff online or whatever. And I came across somebody and they're like, oh, yeah, I was studying for one of my boards or licensing exams and I went up 50 points in 2 weeks. I'm like, okay, that's a huge jump, whatever, whatever. I'm like, okay, that's doesn't seem realistic or whatever. So I'm like, okay, I'll just pay attention, see what they're doing. And then I said, you know what? Let me try one of the things I said to do. I'm like, okay, let me do this. And I went ahead and did it. And I'm like, okay, this is a lot of work. I really don't know if this is a good use of my time to do this process. I got these licensing exams I need to take, and I'm spending like 2 days going over this one process for one practice test or whatever. And I could be doing something else I feel more comfortable with. I could be reading and learning more material that I feel like I don't know, although technically I do know it. I just didn't feel confident or comfortable in the level of my knowledge and doing that instead of doing this process of reviewing this previous practice exam and having a strategy in place for that. And I'm just like, okay, maybe I'm gonna just stop. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna take this licensing exam, so I'm gonna continue through with this process. And that was that. Then it's like, okay, test day is here. We're going to be at the Prometric Test Center all day. And we get in there, and what was it? The lady at the front, she was like, anybody taking an 8 to 9 hour test, please come up front because we got to get you guys started. Other people, I looked around, other people like, oh my goodness, these people are taking 8 hour, 9 hour exams. And yeah, that's what we were doing. I don't think we were the finance people. I knew there was a guy who was taking a Series 7 exam. And then what was it? These guys looked like they were construction workers taking some type of exam. So they obviously weren't going to be there for like 8 or 9 hours or whatever. So it was like us, the MDs or whatever, physicians doing our licensing step exams that we're going to be there all day or whatever. So I got in there, took the test, did what I needed to do and all of that stuff. And I'm one of those people when I take standardized like medical licensing exams, I have no clue how I do. Usually the ones that I think, oh, that wasn't too bad, or I've like this was a test to have, this was the one that if you want to take an exam, this was the one to take. I usually do less. My performance is lower than what I expected. And then on the ones where I'm like, oh my goodness, I got blown out the water. I had no clue what was going on in certain stuff. This test was super, super hard. Those were the ones that I actually performed better than what I expect. So I come to a point where I don't even try to assess how my performance is going to be going into these exams. But then I was speaking to another physician, and he was telling me that he, for his licensing exams, I think one of them he had to take 4 times before he could pass it. And his advice was stick with your gut and trust your gut instinct. And so like when leading up to my licensing exams, that's what I would do. I'm like, I need to learn how to actually trust myself and really go with my like first choice because that's usually the correct one because if you start overthinking things, you're more likely to get it wrong. And I know on one question I had an answer choice, put it down. And I said, no, let me think about this a little bit more. It could be this. I know they put in that detail there for a reason, or that family medical history is there for a reason. So it's probably not going to be that. And then you get a little bit where you're just getting a little too complex with things and you are getting yourself in trouble. And I got myself in trouble where I overthought the question, made it more difficult than what it needed to be. Because in medicine, there's something called horses and zebras. And on these license exams, my mentor physician was telling me, he was like, "Yeah, you got to remember this thing. This is a licensing exam. They want to see any physician across the country should have a basic level competency. So that's what these exams, licensing exams are asking. Like, can you do what any physician should be able to do at a basic level? So with that being said, you do not want to be looking for zebras on these exams. Look for the horses. The horses, those are the bread and butter cases of things that you're going to see across the board, regardless of what specialty you're going into or whatever. So that's what you need to do on these exams because historically, I'm like, no, that's too easy. And I would use what was one? 5 letter word trick. And that's not the case. These exams, no exam really is out to trick you. They just want to see if you have a certain level of proficiency and things like that. And so when I'm doing these board exam, licensing exams, that's what I had to change. I had to change. And one thing is to realize the test is not out to trick you. They're not out to trick you. They just want to know, do you know what's going on? Are you a competent physician? And yes, there might be some details and subtle clues and hints that they put in there to lead you to the most correct or most likely answer choice. And that could be minute details that if you don't know well could get you in a little bit of trouble, but they're not out to trick you. And then the second thing I had to learn is you got to really trust yourself and know what your gut instinct is telling you, because more often than not it's going to be correct, especially when you're someone like me who puts a lot of time and effort into your studying and doing what you need to do. And so I started to do that, and I just realized, oh wow, I'm actually having more success going with my gut choice and not overthinking things, changing things. And so that was one thing the physician mentor said, be aware of. Check yourself internally. How are you responding to questions and what's going through your mind, what's going through your gut when you're answering these questions. I obviously did a lot of this on like practice exam. You can't really do as much on the real exam because you have the time constraints and everything like that. And then you have that adrenaline and the nerves and everything like that too. But leading up to that, you want to get yourself to a position where you know yourself, where you're taking a test and you're not going to be stressed and you're not going to fall back on your bad test taking ways and strategies and everything like that. So you want to make sure you do that going into that. And I think that's very valuable advice that anybody at whatever level that you are and you're training, whether you're pre-med, med student, physician, resident, or whatever, because you're going to have exams, multiple choice through and through throughout your career, to really know that. And what I want to do is really just going into a new year or whatever, and I really want to help students who are not where they need to be academically and know they have the potential, but just aren't getting the help that they need to really move forward. And so I'm going to be speaking more on academics, more on standardized exams, more on test taking strategies, study hints, and things like that to really help you guys boost what you're doing. Because as my father would say, the definition, well, we all heard this, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. I know there's some of you guys out there, you guys are in the classroom and you're following the same uh, dead end strategy of how to prepare for these exams, and you get your test back from the professor, and you're like, oh my goodness, I barely passed, or I barely failed this test and I just don't know what to do. And you're doing the same thing over and over. We're going to change that for you guys. We're going to make some changes that are going to get you where you need to be and do some crazy stuff. Well, not crazy stuff, but I don't think I ever said, but yeah. So I was like getting ready for the board, and I tried this new strategy. And from using that new strategy that I was doing in preparation for my one of my license exams, I actually bumped up 25 points on a board licensing exam, which is huge. And that was in a span of 1 week. And people didn't think that was possible. They didn't think that was going to happen because of it. So I was like, I scored higher than what I had ever scored previously and everything like that. And then I was talking to the learning, study skills learning person, uh, and he was like, you know what? He goes, I bet your school is shocked. I don't think they expect you to do that well on that exam. I'm like, I don't think they did at all, and everything like that. But I want you guys to have that where then you guys can turn around and speak to the people that worked with you. And they're like, you know what? I'm proud of you, man. Congratulations. I feel just excited like I was the one taking that exam. I know you did all the work and all the studying, but man, that really makes me feel well that you trusted me for using my systems and my strategies, that you got where you needed to be. And then he'd be like, Dr. Pierre, you know what? There's another student over at the school that I'm at. They're having a little bit of difficulty. Would you mind speaking to them about your experiences and things like that? Because I know they're struggling, they're borderline and things like that. They need help to get over that hump or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, definitely. Send them my contact information, put me in touch with them, and I'll kind of help them get squared away in this process. And I want that for you guys too. I want you guys to be like, just have a breath of fresh air, look at your exam score report and be like, oh my goodness, I wasn't expecting that to do that well on this exam or whatever, even if it's just a classroom test that you're taking, to have that significant change. I do tutoring with students. I know there was one student I was working with, and for their undergrad, they were in biochem and they were on the verge of failing a class. And here's the thing, they were a senior and they needed this class to graduate. And they just had maybe two more exams and a final, and they were failing. And they decided to work with me for what they needed to do. I told them, like, I'm not going to tutor you on all the specifics of biochemistry, but I'm going to give you broad frameworks for studying and test taking strategies. That student applied what I taught them, did what they needed to do, and zoomed right up on their next exam. That's how fast things can happen when you guys have like systems and processes in place. And their professor was shocked or whatever that they scored so high in the exam, and then they went ahead and did extremely well in the final, and ultimately was able to graduate from undergrad because they passed their biochem class and didn't have to repeat it or delay graduation. So I want that for you guys. I want to really hone in on that because I know there's a lot of pre-meds who have potential, but just don't have the skill set or the learning and test taking strategies in place to excel. And I want you guys to have more of that. So I'm going to put an emphasis on that because that's one of the biggest things that takes so much time and effort to improve upon. Because you have a GPA and it's like in the toilet, let's say, it is so hard to fix. That's one of the hardest things to fix. And it's one thing that medical schools look at when they're deciding who they're going to admit to medical school is your GPA and obviously your MCAT. But if you don't have the GPA, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. And so we really need to make sure that you guys are all squared away with that and have the solid foundation so that even when you're in medical school, then you don't have to worry as much. You can go in there and really and master the material and not be afraid that you're going to be borderline, don't know the material as well as you need to know it and everything like that. And so I want to just make sure that you're going to be like have a really strong foundation for your medical career and beyond. So I want to really just do that for you guys going forward and just let you guys know that things are possible. Anything is possible. You got to believe in yourself. One thing. So even to talk about mindset, you got to believe in your thing, in yourself. And here's and I was born in Illinois, and so I grew up in the Michael Jordan era, his airness, or whatever it is, Air Jordan, whatever his airness. So Michael Jordan, MJ, 23, all the way through and through. That was the icon, the legend, of whatever. And so one thing I want to say about that is you have to believe in yourself. Michael Jordan says that he can't swim. So he can't swim. Okay, he acknowledged that. And he said in his book, he goes, now if I'm near a body of water and there's a kid drowning, he goes, I'm going to jump in and do my best to save that kid knowing I can't swim. However, I'm not jumping into that body of water thinking, oh, I can't swim. I can't swim. This is just futile. I'm thinking of all like the bad things that can happen. No, he goes, no, my mindset is I'm jumping in. I'm going to save this child and I'm going to save myself too. And we're both going to make it out of this alive. And that's a mentality you guys need to have going into your exams. You need to say, I'm going in here. I'm going to just bring it to this test. I'm going to show this professor what I know. I'm going to show these licensed exams what I know. I'm going to show these MCAT test writers what I know. And I'm going to excel because I studied. I put a lot of effort into this exam. So it's going to happen. And even the one guy, there's a motivational speaker named Eric Thomas, and he has this one video. Like, I give this video out to people who are struggling all the time with things like, you need to watch this. This is very motivating. This is what needs to happen for you. This is the mindset that you need to have. And one of the things he says is, if you're struggling, if you're going through something that's painful, that's difficult, That is really so crushing. You need to see it through to the end and make sure you're going to get a reward for your pain. So don't quit. Don't give up. Keep fighting. Do everything that you need to do. Come back to the drawing board. Figure out a different plan of action. But don't give up because you can't win and you can't pass that exam once you give up. So I don't want to see anybody give up going forward in medicine and pre-med or whatever. You need to keep fighting. You need to find a way. You need to reach out to people. You need to do everything in your power to excel and get where you need to be because I want to see you where you belong and where you're meant to be and not where somebody else says they think you are and everything like that. Because I tell you, my mentor, he's like, I'm sure your school and other people did not expect to see those type of results from you. I'm like, yep, exactly. And so that's what we want to do. We want to have you like come in and like hit that surprise email or that message to people. And they're like, oh my goodness, we did not expect you to have this type of score. This is extremely good. Congratulations and all of that. So I want that for you guys. So stay tuned, pay attention. We're going to do a lot of academic stuff moving forward to help you guys get where you need to be so that you can be successful on your journey and on your career of becoming a doctor. Thanks.